Thank you so much.
All right, so why did I just show you a video about a tornado that hit a couple years ago, an EF4 tornado? Well, I'm Dustin. I come from a disaster relief background. I've been doing disaster relief for the better part of a decade before joining Anthropic. And my goal in this presentation is, it's going to be a little bit of a weird presentation, and I'll have lots of disclaimers here, but my goal is really to help us think all about how do we prevent the next disaster from happening, because getting ahead of a disaster is much more cost-effective, much better for society, and it's a much better experience for everyone involved than having to respond to disaster. So I'll talk a little bit more about what I did here and how all of this connects to AI world. But before that, just a quick disclaimer. First, I am not trying to sell you anything. I'm not in sales. I don't think anyone from sales has even seen this presentation. So feel free to use whatever models you want. It doesn't matter to me. You can use open source. You can use our competitors. You can use us, like whatever. But at the end of the day, I think the lessons will be the same. And that is really that we need to start thinking about the risks ahead of time, and that we need to start figuring out how we can take advantage of the benefits that are coming to us around the corner and distribute all those benefits not only to a concentrated number of people, but to society at large. And that's why we are all here in this room. The other disclaimer is that actually Claude made all of these slides. So any mistakes are just, that was Claude, okay? Like I said, I spent about a decade working in disaster relief. I started my career with the United Nations. I went to Cisco Tactical Operations with their pro bono quick response team. I've also worked with ITDRC, Information Technology Disaster Resource Center, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that also works on natural disasters, like the one that you just saw in the video above. I've worked from the Philippines to West Africa, working on Ebola. That was what I thought was going to be the only pandemic I would ever have to work on. And then I worked on Hurricane Maria and a bunch of others in the middle. Eventually, I did wind up leading our COVID response with Project Connect, where we deployed hundreds of Wi-Fi access points to get students back online, to get workers being able to access their jobs remotely. I also worked on the Haiti earthquake response a few years ago. So all of these things were kind of post-disaster, hurricane hits, wildfire hits, earthquake hits, pandemic hits. How do we respond to these things? And I really loved the work that I did because I felt like the things that I was doing were so impactful. We were able to get connectivity back online for doctors so that they could get their medicine requisitioned, they could get supplies delivered. We're able to get networks online so that the World Food Program could airlift a few tons of food into Sierra Leone. But all of these things were post-disaster, and all of these things meant that we were dealing with the aftermath of immense suffering after the event had happened. So the question I have is, what can we do to prevent that from happening? And Claude threw this, again, Claude put all this together, so I'm gonna have to reverse engineer some of this. My first, actually, before I started disaster relief, I worked in neuroengineering. My whole career has been around impact. I worked on technology for helping folks with nervous system injuries to recover from that. My own father had issues with his spinal cord, so I was trying to figure out solutions to that. That could have helped hundreds of thousands of people. Disaster response, I thought, was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, I can go from hundreds of thousands of people affected to like millions of people in a single disaster. This is really great. And people ask me all the time, like, why would you ever want to leave disaster relief? It's such meaningful work. Today, I work on AI safety at Anthropic. And the reason I'm at Anthropic is because my job is to prevent the next disaster from happening. It's really to prevent the disaster of whether it is the biopandemic risks, whether it's the risks of cyber warfare, whether it's the risks of societal impacts and job displacement. My job is our mission at Anthropic is to make sure that we really transition to a post-AI world, which again benefits everyone ahead of time. And I think this could really impact the entire world in a really meaningful way. So what are the things that we could be doing here? So maybe some of you have already read Dario's essays. Machines of Love and Grace is one of these. He talks a lot about how AI can really transform how we do healthcare. Actually, Daniela, our president, has talked about how she, during her pregnancy, had a lot of trouble with a bacterial infection. And it was misdiagnosed for a while, but it turned out that AI was really helpful in being able to solve this and figure out how to do this. It can also help us with drug discovery. It can help us to bring care to thousands or millions of people who may not have access to the same doctors that we have here in this room. For science, we want to make sure that AI can also help every scientist, not just the ones in the best funded labs. And again, like maybe this could help us to not only discover the next health medicines and cures, but it potentially could also help us in other ways in developing the next internet or developing the next piece of technology that really meaningfully improves our lives. For a lot of the folks here who are working in education, also or in work affecting our communities, AI could really help in providing a tutor for every student, customized learning. And for those in small business, maybe this could help remove some of the toil and get you back to the things that you really love, building the products that you really want to deliver to your customers. So our thesis at Anthropic is really that we expect AI to really compress a century of progress into a very short amount of time. And we have to be ready for that. So this chart here was developed by a nonprofit called Meter. There's a lot of data in here, so you don't have to memorize all of it. But the idea here is that the y-axis here represents the amount of time a language model can work on a software task. And you can see in the early pieces of this, so like in 2022, which is when I joined Anthropic, basically you'd be lucky if the model would return anything meaningful or coherent to you. Today, we're around this era where it actually says measurements above 16 hours are unreliable with our current task suite. So we've saturated most of the benchmarks in this area. But so the takeaway here is that models are getting really good, really fast, not just on short kind of chat-like interactions, but even on long horizon tasks. And we can expect that this will continue to, this curve will continue to rise upwards, and AI will be able to accomplish more and more for us. And again, will be able to help us with those things that we talked about: health, science, education, and this pace will continue to rise. So this can be also a force multiplier for lean teams. We talked about a budget crisis that Bill just mentioned. I come from the nonprofit world again, so working for the UN, working for a 501c3, I very much know what a budget crisis looks like. So I'm going to talk a little bit about ITDRC, which is the nonprofit that I worked for before coming to Anthropic, and just to set the stage for some of the work that we've done. So we're a disaster response org. We help a lot of governments recover from disasters. We worked a lot with, for example, on Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica. We worked on the Pacific Northwest floods in December. We also worked on Typhoon Sinlaku, where we sent volunteers off to Guam and Saipan to work on the comm systems over there. But probably most relevant to the folks in this room, Project Connect, which is the project I led on COVID-19. We worked a lot with the state, connecting tribal and rural communities, and especially providing Wi-Fi access to students and to the communities who are living in these very rural areas who may not even have access to a McDonald's or Starbucks to be able to get online and access to education. So we did a lot of work in that area. It was a lot of very heavy operational lifting, tracking both our volunteers, our vehicles, our network assets, and getting them all deployed across the state. Before I joined Anthropic, we did a lot of this work by building applications on top of large SaaS platforms. I'm sure many of you know of them. And it was honestly pretty painful. It was a lot of like, which plugins do we need for this thing? How do we develop the custom map in this like very esoteric interface, very not developer friendly. But what I'm showing you here is actually a screenshot from our operations map as of yesterday, actually. So it's basically a live operations tracker. It shows things like where each of our sites that are active are across the country. It shows us where each of our vehicle assets are. It monitors them in real time. It tells us where our volunteers are deployed. It tells us what kind of assets are each site. It tells us what kind of whether we're servicing a hospital or a school, or in this case, in Project Connect cases like COVID-19 testing sites or vaccination sites. And all of this was built with by one person with Claude. So my point here is that you can actually get a lot done with a lot less. Code is getting a lot cheaper. It's still not free, and you have to think about the maintenance costs. But this is a real use case for just getting things done and getting things done quickly and really solving the problem that our nonprofit had. This is just a couple more screenshots of different applications that we've built at ITDRC. One is a volunteer management system on the left. One is kind of an impact reporting system on the right. And again, all of this built by one person. So you can imagine trying to customize a SaaS platform to track exactly the types of assets that we deploy. We use a lot of different kind of networking gear. We track a lot of different attributes for each volunteer and where they go. We need to do safety check-ins. So a lot of these things are very, very custom and very bespoke to our workflows. But again, all of these things can be built essentially by one person. The only caveat here is, and we do this a lot inside of my team at Anthropic as well. We talk a lot about like the build versus buy equation. I'm sure all of you have thought about this. And I think the thing that even I didn't really see this happening like 2 years ago. Like I saw that AI was getting better, but I didn't really see it. I didn't really feel it because we weren't actually building it. But now that we've built it, it's like, oh wow, like we can actually make this happen. We can get so much done so quickly without having to go through contracting processes, without having to go through integration, without having to use consultants. This is really amazing. But of course, for all of those of you who are in technology, of course you know that once you build it, you have to actually maintain it, keep running it. So that is a real thing. Make sure you don't forget about that as you weigh that equation. So I talked a little bit about the opportunities. Now I want to kind of transition into the risks. I actually work on security, so I'm actually going to talk probably most about kind of this area and focus on this because this is what I know. Our team, just a couple months ago in April, we published some data on how well the models are doing in developing new exploits, novel exploits for well-known software. So Firefox. Firefox has a JavaScript shell. With our older models, Sonnet 4.6, Opus 4.6, what we were able to see was that those models were able to achieve some level of control over the JavaScript shell, but not actually full exploitation. So Sonnet was about 4 or 5%, was able to get some sort of like vulnerability identified, but not actually like exploit it. For Opus, it was around 14 or 15%. Mythos was the model that we developed in April. What you see here is that this red bar here that says 72.4%. And what that number means is it's the percentage of trials that generated a successful exploit. So not just found a vulnerability, but was able to exploit that vulnerability all the way to getting basically root on that software. So in one model generation, we've seen this incredible jump from 14% of like just being able to find some kind of vulnerability to actually consistently developing exploits in software like Firefox. And of course, all of you know what Firefox is. This is software that is very well known, very popular, very used across our communities, and has had tons of eyes looking at the code for ages. We've also seen Mythos find vulnerabilities in OpenBSD. Some of these vulnerabilities have been around for 10 or maybe 15 years, and those were also some like remote code execution vulnerabilities. So that's incredible. So that is a huge jump in offensive capability of these models, and that's something that we have to be prepared for, because this level of AI capability is coming to all of us, whether we want it or not. Attackers will start to use these models to find these vulnerabilities and exploits, and we're going to have to figure out how we will live in that sort of world. The good news is that these models are also quite good at patching vulnerabilities and developing patches. So this is a chart that I pulled from Firefox's blog. What they show is that you kind of have a steady state of security bug fixes around like 20-ish bug fixes per month, and then you start to notice a little bit of an uptick in February and March, and then in April we have 423 security bug fixes. 271 of those were found by Mythos. So this is a real thing that we can use, where we can use AI as defenders, as the people who are trying to protect our users, to try to get ahead of the exploits, to get ahead of our attackers who may use this technology for ill. The takeaway here is that for the people in the room, it's about to get really weird from a security perspective, right? Like, we have always been in the habit of trying to make sure that we have regular patch cadences, but that was kind of in this era where we were seeing like 20 security bugs per month. We have an order of magnitude more bugs. Many of them are actually much more severe, again leading to full takeover, remote code execution vulnerabilities. So we're about to enter a world where we're going to have to get better operationally at patching all of our devices, whether they are users' devices or our OT, industrial control devices, IoT. All of these things are vulnerable, and we're about to see a lot of vulnerabilities discovered across the entire software ecosystem. So with Project Glasswing, which, it was been our program to put the Mythos in the hands of defenders first. So we've been working with large companies and foundations who build and run a lot of the critical infrastructure that we all rely on. So whether that's Microsoft, Google, Cisco, CrowdStrike, Linux Foundation, we're making sure that these organizations have access to patch and defend the software that we all use every day. So in the first few weeks of Glasswing, over 10,000 high or critical severity vulnerabilities were found by these partners. And we've also committed hundreds of millions in model credits to defensive work. Just earlier this week, we've also expanded access to Mythos to around 200 critical infrastructure organizations across the world. And everyone has access to Claude security if you're able to get into the beta, and you're able to use that to look for vulnerabilities and suggest patches to your own first-party code. So again, this is a world that we are going to be living in, that we are already starting to live in, and we have to get ahead of the attackers. Another risk beyond cyber is biosecurity. We talked earlier about some of the benefits that AI could bring to drug discovery, to finding new cures, potentially the cure to cancer. But these are also double-edged weapons. If a model can help you find a cure, it can also help an attacker, someone maybe who might be malicious, to find a novel virus. So this is kind of the flip side of that, and we have to make sure that, again, how do we protect our models from being misused? How do we protect our society from the potential harms that these models might bring? So every time we release models, we test for dangerous uplift capability, and we make sure that we have strict safeguards every time we kind of lift up on how well these models can do this kind of work. And we do screening in real time, and we also red team our models. But we need to make sure that this is true for everyone who's working on models, not just Anthropic models. So cyber risk and bio risk, those are two huge risks, and I worry about those alone quite a bit. But I also talked at the very beginning about societal risk. What happens when AI becomes really, really good? My job is certainly changing. In the past 6 months, the things that I do have really shifted because I've been able to offload more and more of the really toilsome, burdensome stuff to Claude. But what happens when this starts to kind of bleed into other people's jobs? So this screenshot on the right side, this diagram is taken from our Anthropic Economic Index that was most recently published in March. And what this is data on how AI is used. I think this is really useful to inform what are the areas that are already being impacted by AI today. Obviously, computer science, math, these models are really good at generating code. I use Claude to code for my work all the time. And we're starting to see this bleed into other areas, whether it's legal, finance, community service, social sciences, life. So being ready for what is around the corner. These models, again, going back to Meteor's chart, like these models are only getting better. And in 3 months, in 6 months, what are these models going to be able to do? And how do we prepare our workforces and ourselves for being able to deal with that reality? And I think a lot of you work in economic related jobs here, to thinking about like how do we prepare these workforces. For those of you in education, I heard someone speaking about how we train our students to have AI skills. The world is about to get really weird, and I think we need to be ready for that. There's lots of so going back to cyber, bio, societal impacts. There's lots of different ways to help manage these risks. I think regulation is potentially one of these things as well. And there's a balance that we need to make, right? If we have too little regulation, we might end up failing to enact the right rules for everyone to play by, and the risk may be underpriced, and we may end up with a world in which AI has gone rogue. Maybe we don't have the right safeguards in place. But also, if we put too much regulation in, we risk slowing down the delivery of these new medicines, new discovery of new cures, new scientific progress. So we have to find a way to be able to do this in a balanced way that really weighs the potential upside, the benefits that I talked about earlier, with all of the risks that we face as well. So just to ground this a little bit in the room here for for Washington State, our beneficial deployments team thinks a lot about how we can really help to realize the benefits of AI across the areas that we talked about earlier. So whether that's in health, education, life sciences, economic mobility. For example, we've partnered with the Gates Foundation on global health, and we also have an AI for Science program which funds, well, exactly that. It provides AI credits for scientists who are working on meaningful, impactful things that could bring benefits to all of us. So some of our partners include University of Washington, Allen Institute, and Fred Hutch Institute. If you want to learn more about these things, AI for Science, we have a program, a webpage, anthropic.com/AI for Science. It's actually, when I looked at this, I was like, oh, wow, this is like a really easy way to get AI API credits. It's really just a forum. It's not a grant cycle. So if you're a scientist and you're looking for a way to apply AI to your work, please feel free to submit that there. If you're in a nonprofit space, we have discounts for those organizations. Again, I'm not a salesperson, so actually it doesn't really matter to me which AI model you use, but these are maybe two resources that you might want to be aware of. So call to action. So the main thing is like, I think it's important for everyone in this room to make sure that we're starting to use AI now, as well as our colleagues, our teammates, our peers across the state, local governments, education. We have to, this is such a rapidly evolving field. We need to understand how AI works, what the opportunities are, how we can build applications like we did with ITDRC that really solve a lot of that burdensome operational toil and really magnify the impact of each individual human that we have when our budgets might be very constrained. We also want to make sure that we're planning for the models of tomorrow, not just for the models of today. That line is just going to keep going up, and these models are just going to get better and better and better. I'd also encourage folks to start experimenting with building your own tools. Code is getting a lot cheaper, and I showed you some examples of this. Again, I feel this all the time in my own work at Anthropic. The build versus buy equation has really swung in the direction of being able to customize the tools to do exactly the things that we need, but also remaining aware that maintenance, again, costs something. Also, get ready for security. Security is around the corner for us. We've shown how quickly vulnerabilities can be discovered, even in very well-established code bases. And more people are going to have access to these tools, whether they're on the side of defenders or on attackers. So we have to be ready for that wave of vulnerabilities that is going to come at us. You can also partner up. There's lots of different organizations who can help with AI adoption. Again, it doesn't really matter to me who you work with, but a couple examples. U.S. Digital Response is an amazing nonprofit that works with governments across the country to really leverage technology to solve a lot of the really burdensome challenges. ITDRC, I'm going to plug my own nonprofit. We are totally free of charge. We never charge. We operate entirely on donations as well as with volunteers. And of course, Anthropic, we have our beneficial deployments programs as well. The last one is maybe the most important point here. And really it's that we as a society need to make sure that the benefits of AI get distributed to all of the people across the entire world. I think one risk that we're worried about is just that AI is only available to the select few. And if that's the case, what happens if we aren't able to provide the same sorts of access to magnifying your impact in your job, or the same access to healthcare, or the same access to these organizational improvements, the efficiency improvements. So it's important that we make sure that we're not only using AI for ourselves, but also using AI to serve our constituents and to serve the people across the state, across the country, and across the world. And with that, that's all I have. I just want to say thank you to all of you. I know you guys are all doing some incredible work for the communities here, and I appreciate all of the things that you're working on today.